Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to the other side of success. My name is Tyler Rutledge, and I am your host. Before we get going today, I'd like to thank my sponsors. I've got two new ones for this season. First and foremost, we're going to talk about Killcliff Energy and Recovery. Killcliff is clean energy with bold flavor. We'll put the link in our bios on Instagram, and we'll also put those in the show notes. I'd like to thank my friends over at Farmhouse Fitness who believes in movement with purpose. I love what we do at this gym and how it helps me perform both physically and mentally. And then this year, I'm also proud to be a Capital One credit card ambassador. I've trusted Capital One for 11 years. We love the Spark card for all of our business expenses and the way it helps us travel. All of these links will be in our show notes as well as our social media content. Enough of that. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to have my good friend, Blake Smith. Blake is a former Mississippi State relief pitcher who knows firsthand the highs and lows of competitive sports. From record-breaking seasons in junior college to standing on the mound in SEC play to enduring a career-changing injury. A native of Scottsboro, Alabama and Fort Payne, a lifelong Alabama fan, Blake took a different path than expected, ultimately wearing maroon instead of crimson. His journey is one of perseverance, faith, and learning to trust the process when life doesn't go to plan. Today, Blake is a successful State Farm agent applying lessons from the diamond to business, leadership, and family life. He is also a husband and proud father of three, balancing family life with business ownership and community involvement. Blake, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Tyler. I'm really excited to be here and excited to see what we get into today.
Man, one of the first things that I ask people is when you hear that bio where you're sitting right now, what do you think about that?
It's weird. It's kind of on one side, it takes me, back through memory lane. It brings up a lot of great memories, a lot of memories that I may not want to remember. you know, Ultimately my journey that led me here. Throughout life, God puts things in your path that you may expect, you may not expect, and ultimately it just kind of makes up who you are as a person. I truly, truly believe I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I may not have gotten here the way I thought I would get here, but here we are nonetheless.
Yeah, man, for sure. And that's the exact thing about this show is that there's a backside that a lot of people don't see, a lot of struggles, sleepless nights, stress, tears, and then joy also, right? So
All
listen,
the
so
things.
you grew up in Scottsboro and then you
Mhm.
moved to Fort Payne over Christmas break of your freshman year.
I
And
did.
when you did that, you went to a rival school. When I was talking to you pre-show, you told me that this might be the hardest thing that you've ever done. All right. I know you
Absolutely.
faced SEC batters. So what was so hard about moving schools your freshman year of high school versus some of the things that you've accomplished since?
Yeah, so where I'm from, Scottsboro and Fort Payne they play for a trophy every year called the Top Cat Trophy. And we kind of grow up playing against each other as well in youth sports, travel sports. I kind of knew some of the guys playing them in junior high, and uh, there's a lot of loyalty to each place. I'm from small town Alabama, so it kind of matters where you're from and who your people are, if that makes sense. My dad grew up in Scottsboro, still has ties and connections there, still has a business in Rainsville, Alabama. It's kind of right in between Scottsboro and Fort Payne. Still have a lot of dear family friends in the Scottsboro area. Ultimately, it was just anytime at that age, I think I was 14 years old, to completely uproot your life, leave all the people that you've known and grown comfortable with your entire life, to move to a place that I think I may have known two people just from playing against them, in sixth, seventh, eighth grade, and to kind of come to a realization that those people in the new place didn't really want me there either. And the people that, from Scottsboro where I was leaving were disappointing in the reason that, I was leaving, which was just to provide myself with a better opportunity to play college baseball. And I didn't expect people to understand that. It's a pretty drastic thing to do, just to move schools for a sport. I understand that. Ultimately, it was a conversation that I had with my family, and it was something that I really, really wanted to pursue and give myself the best chance to achieve that dream. And for me, that meant uprooting my life. I was actually the starting quarterback for Scottsboro my freshman year of high school, and then moved and was a starting third baseman for Fort Payne, 2 months later. So it was just it was a weird deal.
That's crazy, man. So obviously, I mean, we're going to have people listen to this that may have kids in that age group. When you're a freshman in high school or eighth grade going into freshman year of high school, it sounds like you knew and your family, your support system knew that baseball is what you wanted to chase. That was the dream that you wanted to lock into.
Hmm.
You talk about being a quarterback as well. Did you play football through high school, or did you go into that freshman year at this new school and say, I need to focus on baseball?
I played football all 4 years.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I hear a lot of these parents, and obviously you and I, our kids are not there yet, although we're excited
Young
about
tots.
those times that specialize, right? Going into high school. And unfortunately I did that in my sport, which was tennis, because I thought that was going to be what I did play in college, and I ended up deciding not to go that route. So there's a lot of regret there, not playing organized team sports, primarily football and basketball. What made you want to continue to play football, even though you knew that you had a gift in baseball?
Ultimately, for me, football was one of my favorite. Actually, if I had to say which was my favorite sport to play, it was probably football. When I moved to Fort Payne, I actually didn't play quarterback there because there was a guy there that was just a lot better than me, and they made the right choice to play that guy. I actually moved over to defense and played free safety, which was a ton of fun. It was really, for me, there was no pressure. And I was just out there having a great time.
Yeah.
I had no aspirations to play college football. I understood, I didn't have the God given talent ability to make that a reality. Because no matter what anybody believes here on this podcast, there's a major God given piece to the guys that are able to play at a major Division I SEC level.
Hmm.
That's out of your control. Now, there's obviously work ethic and things that you can do to maximize your God given potential, but there's still that God given
Yep.
potential piece that plays a factor.
Yeah.
For me, football really taught me how to compete, right? Because you're out at practice every day with guys you go to school with every day, right? So tackling drills, scrimmages, like there's just a sense of pride that comes along with,
Right.
if I get beat in this drill, I got to see that guy tomorrow in science class and he's going to remind me about it. Right. And even guys that I played with in college, a lot of the ones that played football in high school too were fierce competitors
Mm.
and just weren't intimidated by anything. Not to say that the baseball only guys were easily intimidated. I mean, some were, some weren't. But ultimately, there was kind of a common theme amongst the high school football players that I played with in college is that they just didn't really fear anything.
Right. Man, that's good stuff. So, one of the things that I want to learn a little bit more about, and I know in this state, so many kids deal with this. Fortunately, I grew up in Georgia, so I didn't have to deal with a lot of this, but you have talent. You've got D1 talent. You know what you're capable of doing. You're a lifelong Alabama fan, right? And you're getting through this recruiting process. And of course, the stories that I know that I want you to share a little bit about with our listeners is you weren't recruited by Alabama.
I would say technically no, I wasn't. Out of high school, I wasn't good enough to play at the Division I level. Like there were signs that I had projectability, which is a lot of what guys are drafted off of, and out of high school, and guys that get those opportunities. A lot of it's based on projectability. I could do a few things really well, and I had potential to be able to contribute at that level, but I wasn't ready at 18 years old. So I went to junior college first. I went to Shelton State in Tuscaloosa, which is, as you know, 5 miles from campus, maybe.
Mhm.
I mean, so you're kind of in that Tuscaloosa atmosphere, at Shelton State. And I was there for 2 years. I had a good freshman year and ultimately had a really good sophomore year. And, every year we played at Alabama in the fall. We would play a scrimmage game against another junior college. Alabama's coaches would be there. They were, at our school all the time watching guys. And, um, I wanted to go to Alabama. I really
Mm.
did. I forget who the pitching coach was at the time, but he had come to a game. And I remember exactly where he was sitting. I remember walking right by him and making eye contact with him, and um, had conversation with him kind of after the game, and he just said, "Dude, you're just not good enough. We're
Mm.
not interested." And I just nodded my head and said, "Okay,
Mm.
I sure do hope I get the chance to play against you."
Oh man, there's so many people that have come on this show that have been told similar things. I mean, me too. So let's talk a little bit about that community college deal. So obviously there was a fire that was lit under your tail at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
I did some stat looking, and according to the resources that I used to pull this, you set the record at Shelton State Community College for the lowest ERA in school history. Does that record still stand?
To my knowledge, yes, it does. It's probably been a couple of years since I've looked at that record, but I believe, yeah, I believe it does.
We're going to find out, and we'll put that in the show notes. All right.
Okay, sounds good.
So you set the lowest ERA? Give us some folks may not understand baseball. I'm not a baseball numbers guy. What does an ERA consist of?
Yeah, so an ERA is earned run average. It's an acronym for earned run average. The average runs you give up in a 9 inning span. Uh, to my knowledge. Now that maybe you may have to fact check me on that. I'm not a huge stat guy either, but to my knowledge, that's what it stands for. And ultimately, I think that year I had because the requirement to get that record is you had to have a certain amount of innings. I believe that threshold was 40 innings to be considered for that record. So a guy that throws a third of an inning and has a 0 ERA doesn't get to hold the school record. You know what I mean? So I had 40 plus innings, and I think I may have given up one or two runs in that time span, which I wasn't a starter. I was a guy that came out of the bullpen, typically with people on base. That was kind of my role. I was kind of a back end of the bullpen. I guess you could call me the closer at the time. I typically pitched, seventh inning on. I would sometimes come in the eighth inning, sometimes the ninth, sometimes the fifth. I've
Yeah.
I've had a couple 4 inning saves. So uh,
Well, that
that's ultimately what
number,
led to
just
that.
in case you don't know, is 0.45 ERA. So
Right.
that's pretty steep there, buddy.
So less than one run in every 9 innings.
There you go. Love that. So now that we kind of have a background of your community college and what you did that kind of launched you into Division I college baseball at Mississippi State, there was this feeling of being overlooked by Alabama. I know that lit you, it changed you. And in a way, I think we could say it was probably one of the best things that ever happened to you. There's a great deal of emotional resilience in that. I know that in college, me personally, I wasn't dealing too good with emotional resilience or significant emotional changes. And heck, as an adult, I still have some problems there. So, how did you turn that disappointment into motivation?
Deep down inside, I knew I was good enough. I didn't need somebody to tell me that I was good enough. I just needed somebody to give me a chance.
Mm,
And Mississippi State was the only other SEC school that gave me that chance. And it
wow.
was as a walk on. So I turned down probably 6 scholarship opportunities to play at, mid major level and took a preferred walk on spot at Mississippi State and ended up walking on all 3 years that I was there.
Wow.
So to me, it all came back to why take that chance, right? Why not go somewhere like, Troy, Sanford, South Alabama, all phenomenal baseball schools, with scholarship, they have money invested in you, all great places to play. But ultimately, I just kind of, as talking to my family about it and sitting down and spending time with God about it is like, I didn't do this just to play Division I baseball. Like I wanted to play at the highest level that God would allow me to play at, whether that was Division II or the big leagues or anywhere in between. So Mississippi State was my only option to play in what I would argue to the grave is the most competitive non-professional league in the world, which is the SEC. And I took the chance, and ultimately it paid off. I had a great time at Mississippi State.
You did, and you had a good career there, and I think just the mental fortitude of being able to walk on for 3 years and eat your pride, right? And
Mm-hmm.
as we'll talk a little bit throughout this show, I think a lot of those lessons in college have translated into your career as well. So when you got to Mississippi State and you knew that you were going to have to be a walk, this is year one. Did
Mm-hmm.
you think, like, what was the process to, okay, well, let me come walk on in year one, and then in year two, I can get a scholarship? Like, was this like a rinse and repeat deal, or were you pretty much under the impression knowing that, okay, I'm going to have to walk on for the next 3 years?
I was under the impression I had to walk on all 3 years. Back then, I think it's different now with NIL, but back then we had 11.8 or 11.9, whatever that number was, scholarships for a 35-man roster. I mean, I played with at least 2 first rounders that were not on baseball money the year they got drafted. Baseball was a weird deal with money because they had to kind of spread it around to get guys in, and you would they'd be there for a year, then they would take your money and give it to somebody else. It was a weird dynamic there with the limited amount of scholarships. So I just assumed that I would have to earn my keep every single year, starting with the first day that I got there. So it was just the constant feeling that I had something to prove
Mm.
every single day because we started out in the fall with 42 guys and had to cut it down to 35. and ultimately only 27 travel during the season when you're playing, league play. So obviously the talent was there.
Oh yeah.
I think my first year, there's been 9 of those guys that play in the big leagues. So we had a ton of talent. It was just figuring out what my role was and how could I be the best person for that role to where they have no choice but to plug me into that situation.
So when
And that was a constant everyday battle to earn that trust.
Yeah. So and this just kind of got my brain spinning. So when you think about that, right? Like you're really having to be patient. Where did you get that from? Were those life lessons that you learned growing up? I mean, I know that Division 1 athletes are built different mentally, physically, all that stuff, right? I got that. But there are certain things in life that at 19, 20 years old are very difficult. And I would assume being very patient and very disciplined and having the ability to just trust that, hey, this is going to work out. Like, where did you draw that from?
To me, it was my relationship with Christ, and the genuine belief that I had in myself, because baseball was a huge part of what I did, but it wasn't really my identity. It wasn't what I wanted to be known for. Right?
Mm,
I wanted to be known for someone who was a high character guy and was a follower of Christ. And ultimately, you see multiple times throughout the Bible that not everybody knows the result, right? We know, at the end, Jesus wins, right? But
mhm,
we don't know what that looks like in our lifetime. I was forced to get extremely comfortable not knowing what the future holds, not knowing whether the next day I'm getting cut or I get to pitch on Friday night against Vanderbilt. Like it's just, I got very, very comfortable becoming addicted to that process and the preparation because it's the only thing that I can control.
mm,
And luckily that really taught me, and same thing with, junior college. I mean, there's no guarantee you get a chance to keep playing, right?
right.
So I trusted my coach in junior college to go to bat for me for with these other stools if I performed well and had high character and was a guy that other people would want to come play for their team. Because being good isn't everything, right? You're not going to bring a junior college guy onto your team if he's a cancer. To me, what I really think kept me around was being a team guy first.
Yep.
And just the coaches consistently knew what I was going to do every day. They knew I was going to go to class. They knew that I was going to keep at least a 3.0 GPA because that's how I kept my school money. They knew that I was going to come to practice every day and get after it. And there's going to be days that I get my teeth kicked in. And there's going to be days that I have success. But ultimately, you have to prove yourself day in and day out that you're willing to do the small things that make up the process that breed results, whether those results come or not, or whether you even see them or not.
Mm, man.
And that kind of, and we're both State Farm agents. We both worked at the same company prior to State Farm. When you first start, you suck. Like you
Yeah.
just did. You're terrible. You don't know anything. You don't know. You don't know how to get a glass of water.
Mm-mm.
And, this as well as I do. I've invested my entire life into this. Like all the savings that I had, I had a 6 month old at the time. You don't know what is going to happen. You don't know if the book of business that you're starting with is a loyal customer base, what they think about State Farm, what their relationship was with the prior agent, what their relationship was with State Farm, who your team members are going to be, like all the things that are just so scary. I was able at an early age to understand that it's a waste of time to concentrate on things you can't control.
Mm, come on. So, in even thinking about that, so in 2017, correct me if I'm wrong. So you've gotten there, right?
Hmm.
You've reached your goal. You're at the pinnacle. I mean, you're at one of the most elite SEC programs that there is, Mississippi State. I mean that is the gold standard for SEC baseball. You get hurt, you lose the rest of your season. Like what's going through Blake's head there? Is this your senior year?
So, yes, that was my senior year.
Hmm.
So I played 2 years in junior college. So I came into Mississippi State as a junior in 2016. We had a fantastic year. It was probably the most talented baseball team I've ever been a part of. We won the SEC, outright. We didn't win the SEC tournament. We won the SEC championship that year, which is, the 10 weeks. You play 30 SEC games. I think we went
Way harder than
21-9 or 22-8 to win the league.
Yep.
So I was a major contributor in that bullpen. I don't think I led the team in appearances, but I was, top three maybe. I was actually the guy that was pitching when we won the SEC. Like the last game that we needed to win to clinch the championship. I was on the mound when that happened, and it was really cool. And so kind of the attention is there now, right? So I'm filling out questionnaires for professional teams and meeting with scouts, and all the preseason accolades are coming in, like the preseason stopper of the year stuff. And like now, all of a sudden, I'm getting attention, right? That's never
Right.
happened to me before. I'm the little guy. I'm the junior college kid. We wore cotton T-shirts at Shelton State. We didn't, we weren't on television. So like
Oh, that's
all that
good.
stuff starts happening for me. And now all of a sudden people, know who I am. And then 3 days before the season starts, I'm going through my normal routine, which is just kind of a light bullpen. I work out, and the next day I kind of have a light day, and then we play on Friday night. This is a Wednesday. I guess it was 2 days before the season started. I was throwing my light bullpen, 70% or so, and felt a pop in my elbow and knew what it was, but chose not to believe it, which was stupid. I ended up pitching in 2 games, and it was awful. But the injury was there, so it was one of those things where I was so bad in those 2 appearances that I was praying I was injured. Like I was like, either I'm injured or I'm terrible all of a sudden, and I have the
Mhm.
yips and I can't play anymore.
Mm,
So that was honestly finding out that my UCL was torn was a major relief, because it was like, okay, well, something's actually wrong with me.
yeah.
I don't just all of a sudden
Lose
have
it.
forgotten how to play this game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the yips are real in sports, right? I mean, I know we play golf together, but you see professional
Yeah.
golfers that just, go from elite. I mean, all athletes, you see them. I mean, they just go from elite to, it's just kind of like what happened. And I know there's so much there mentally, like you're talking about. I mean, that to me is like that mental grind of like, my goodness, I've never really heard somebody say that, but I hoped that I was injured because my performance was so bad,
It's just so bad. And to
and,
kind of answer your question, what was that like? Everything came to a dead halt,
mm,
right? So I'm a senior, which means like it's February, right? We start in February. I don't have the surgery till May, so I have to expedite rehab to even have a chance to play again. Even if that's just assuming that Mississippi State allows me to come back, right? Because this is my third head coach that I've played for at this time.
crazy.
That's now the head. He didn't recruit me. The pitching coach didn't recruit me. So this is just assuming that they let me come back and try to make the team again. Ultimately, I think it goes back to kind of that blind trust, is like, okay, now what is my role? Because my role isn't to play anymore. I can't play. So how do I, because in the sports world, when you're a red shirt, medical red shirt, or performance red shirt, whatever you want to call it, like you're not really with the team. Like you're doing your rehab, you're doing your stuff, but you're not at practice. You don't go to the games. You don't dress out. None of that stuff. That year I did. I came to every practice. I dressed out for every home game. I traveled in the postseason, and I completely shifted my role from player to mentor, right? Because now I'm 22 years old, 21, 22 years old, and there's 18-year-old kids that are playing in the SEC in front of 15,000 people. And it's just it's something you don't understand until you experience it, how to have success at that level day in and day out. And my role at that point was no longer player, but what can I do to maximize the potential of this team? Because we had some really, really good older guys on that team. Josh Lovelady, Brent Rooker, some guys in that. Brent Rooker was an all-star this year and participated in the home run derby. He won the Triple Crown that year. Incredible, incredible year he had. So, my role wasn't a player that year, but it was, how can I mentor this pitching staff, this young pitching staff that has never really played at this level, to have as much success as they can have, and knowing that I don't have any real role in that other than just to kind of be a voice that understands the struggles that they go through every day, and kind of what it takes to overcome that.
Golly, man, that's incredible. I really hope there's some parents out there that'll share this with 16 and 17-year-olds that are
Yeah,
trying to
and
go, because
talking
that
about this kind
mentality
of
is
brings
so
back,
incredible.
yeah, it brings back a lot of memories. Like I said, I don't really get to talk about this a lot. So the more I talk about it, the more that comes back, because early on, my parents did a really good job of instilling in me that character matters.
Mhm.
What you do when people are not watching matters.
Yeah.
And I got bitter about that, in my baseball career, because there was tons of guys that I played with that were just better than me, but they were terrible people, just horrible people. But they
Yeah.
played because they were good. And so
Yeah.
I just kind of thought all that was just dog water. Like it's not true. Like the best player is going to play. The character things, it's something your parents tell you because they want you to be a good person. Like it's just bull crap. Well, it's not. It's the only thing that kept me there. They
Mm.
had no reason to keep me for another year, or even keep me around the team for that matter. I couldn't play. So that was a major learning experience for me. It's like all those years of doing the right thing, it finally all kind of, and I didn't always do the right thing, but I tried to do the right
Yeah,
thing and
of
tried
course.
to have, integrity with what I did. And all that kind of came to fruition in that moment and allowed me to come back and have another chance to play in 2018, which we ultimately went to Omaha that year. So it's cool to kind of go back and reminisce and think about that kind of stuff because uh, there's just a lot of lessons that I can apply to my life and teach my kids from what I was blessed to go through.
Yeah.
And that injury was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me.
And, it's so fun. A lot of times I don't get in a lot of these episodes, the guests that I have, I don't really know that well personally. And so, one of the things that we were kind of talking about before we hit record is, like you were saying, is you don't get a chance to talk about this kind of stuff. And one of the things that I wanted to kind of hit on was just that. I was sitting there thinking, like, well, either I'm a bad friend because I've never asked these questions, or Blake just has this humility about him that, it's not, you're not a me guy. And the more I reflected on that on my drive in today, I realized that we have spent some time talking about college and
Hmm.
obviously sports, baseball, how all that stuff works. We've talked about the times that we weren't necessarily following the Lord, right?
100%.
But one of the things that I see in you in talking with this is just like your ability to just have humility and to recognize your role, like you're talking about being able to jump in as a hurt player, recognize the gift that it was to you to be able to stay on as a mentor when the team could have just, kicked you out. There's a great deal of humility that comes with that. Like your ego is just crucified via elbow injury. How did you lock into that? How do you still lock into that?
I think I've been humbled so many times in my life that it's just, I've learned to deal with it, I guess. Baseball's a very humbling game. Life is extremely humbling. The funny thing about, you know, when I'm talking to God and feel like I have everything figured out, something changes immediately, right?
Mm,
And now I feel like a toddler again, and I don't know anything. And ultimately, I think it's just a good, like a fantastic characteristic to have when making friends. I mean, if I would have, back when I first met, if all I ever talked about was playing college baseball, you'd be like, this guy's a blowhard. And it's just kind of, I don't want people to have that first impression of me. Like, I want to get to know you before I ever kind of unlock that side of me,
mhm.
because I also want to get to know you. I don't want to spend my entire time talking about, what a has been I am. Who, to me, this is the stuff that I enjoy talking about, not the fact that I pitched against so and so in front of this many people and all that kind of stuff. Like that, you can look that up on YouTube if you want to. Like I would much rather talk about the mental grind and what it takes to kind of overcome those hurdles that you face every day. I mean, elbow injury is a huge hurdle.
Oh, yeah.
Studying for a test and playing on Friday night and taking a final exam, like all that stuff are small hurdles that you do every single day as part of your process to prepare to give yourself the best, put yourself in the best position to have success. Because success on the baseball field is hard to define, right? Because if you fail 7 out of 10 times, you're successful as a hitter. So to me, it was much more beneficial mentally to fall in love with the process of preparing yourself
Yeah.
and putting yourself in the best position to have that success. So when you get your moment, right? When you get your moment, you're ready for it.
Yeah.
And whatever the result is the result. Because all you can control is what did you do to prepare? And this is what I'm gonna tell my kids when they play. I can give two cracks if they strike out 20 times in a row. Were you prepared to play? Did you give the effort that was required to be prepared to play? And were you intimidated when your moment came?
Mm,
If you can answer those three things honestly, like you honestly worked hard enough, prepared to be ready for your moment, you were concentrating and engaged in the moment, and you weren't intimidated, I don't care what happens.
yeah.
The result's the result, but we can only control what we can control. I think a lot of parents these days kind of and anyone, this is America. We're a results based capitalistic society,
Yep.
right? And you know that well in our game. We keep score at State Farm. We kept score at Federated. There was a document that went around every month that shows you exactly how much money everybody was making. I mean, do you
Crazy.
remember that? I forgot what the document was called, but like it's so easy to get wrapped up in that and become depressed. right? It is for me at least. It's like these guys are doing all this and I'm over here barely keeping the lights on, right? And
Yeah.
I'm spending all this money in marketing and hiring team members and like, but if you find your worth in the result, you'll always let yourself down because there's always somebody bigger and there's always somebody better and there's always the next thing. You never arrive.
Mm.
So it's like, am I just going to hate this life every single day that I live it because I'm never to the point where I'm the very, very best? Like, what is the best?
Mm.
So to me, there's no joy and fulfillment in that. There's only true joy and fulfillment in did I do everything I can today to take a step forward?
That's
And
right.
whether I took a step forward or took a step back, did I allocate the time, energy, and concentration needed to take that step forward? Because sometimes you take steps back and you did everything right,
Hmm.
and then you still face a setback. And sometimes you do everything wrong and you take a step forward out of
That's
sheer
right.
luck. Like it's just a lot of times it just doesn't make sense.
Well, buddy, that's just awesome,
We can
awesome
talk
stuff. And I
10 hours
mean,
about this.
yeah, and I mean, we both, we know where we are. We talk about this kind of stuff behind the scenes, but that's, a guest that I had on at last season. One of the things that he was talking about and that I've really tried to implement in my own personal life right now is whose standards are you trying to achieve to, right? Because if you're trying to achieve to State Farm standards, well, they're always moving the needle. They're always
Always.
asking you for more for less, quite frankly.
And dude, that's America.
And
I mean, I think State Farm does it, but like so does everybody else. You're
yeah,
not alone in that. It's just whoever's listening to this, whoever you're working for, if you're in sales or whatever, the needle always moves.
yeah.
It's always going to move.
I mean, it moves in marriage, right?
Sure, absolutely.
You
As
know,
a parent, yeah,
you there's phases to life where, you start really hitting home runs at home and the wife's like, "Man, this is awesome. My husband, he's stepping up and buddy, he's leading and I'm on board." He's like, next thing you know, she's like, "Well, I'm gonna have to get a little more."
yeah.
It's
It's
like
just
it's
there's
just
always
life.
just things that dynamics that change. Life changes. It's you're not going to be your best every single day, but like, did you make a decision to get up and go get after it or
Mm,
not? And there's days that you need to rest and all that. I'm not saying that you have to work 40 hours a day. It's not possible. But
yeah,
did you make the decision to get back in the saddle
yeah.
even after you have a setback? That's to me something you can find fulfillment in.
So as we get close to the end of this and we start reflecting on the end of your career. So you talked about in your last season with Mississippi State, you guys went to Omaha, and obviously, like all things, that had to come to an end. What was the moment like when you realized, and whether it was even during the game or even just weeks later, whenever you realized maybe you weren't going to go draft it or even try to pursue that, what was it like when you realized that your baseball career and your competitive sports career from an organized perspective was over?
So after the injury, I knew there was a slim chance that I would play professionally, unless for some reason I came back and was, just as good, if not better than I was the year before on a short recovery, right? Which is just not realistically possible, no matter how hard I work, no matter the fact that I did 6 hours of rehab a day every single day for a full summer. So that realization for me was before the season even started. I knew this was my last year to play baseball. And to me, feeling pride at the very end, like what do I need to do to feel proud of what I did over the last 20 years of my life? Right. And it was no matter what the situation was, no matter if I was pitching on Friday night or in a limited role like I was in 2018, because I wasn't as good as I was before the injury. I still pitched, still, I think I don't know, 4-1, I had a few saves. So, I mean, I still contributed, but it wasn't in the same capacity that I did in 16. Like I wasn't pitching in the ninth
Right.
inning. We had guys that were just better than me and should have been pitching. I'm not saying that I should have been the guy. The people were where they were supposed to be in the role on our team. And for me, that entire year was kind of a Cinderella story because we weren't really supposed to be. We were supposed to be terrible. They picked us to finish dead last in the SEC. Our coach got fired. I think the first weekend of the year, we didn't have that good of it. I mean, it's probably like talent wise, probably the worst team that I was on at Mississippi State. There were still great players on the team. I'm not taking that away from them. But, top to bottom, it was probably the least talented team that I was on. And everybody just kind of wrote us off. And we really came together. We had an interim head coach that was just the perfect glue for what we needed. There was just
Mm,
a lot of drama that surrounded our coach being terminated and everything that led up to that. and it was just very, very distracting. And the interim head coach was our pitching coach at the time, Gary Henderson, was a no distraction guy. Like he took he took his notes on a legal pad and at practice. Like he was just the most old school, no nonsense. Let's keep the main thing kind of guy. And I learned so much from him, and that's so true. In this day and age, is keep the main thing, and
Yeah.
everything else will play out how it's supposed to play out. So to answer your question of like how did all that lead up to knowing this was the end, I knew it was the end, so I wanted to make the most of every
Mhm.
single day, and I wasn't going to kind of lay down and go out with, oh, we're written off, we're not supposed to be any good, let's just go ride this thing out. Like no, I worked so hard to come back and play,
Mm.
and there were so many other great guys on our team that deserved a chance to continue to play and needed leadership. And there were young guys that were really, really talented that needed older guys to kind of say, hey, I know nobody expects anything of us, but why not us? You know?
Mm.
And so to be able to go out on that note in Omaha after winning our first two games, we had to win one more game to get to the championship series. And, weren't able to, we got beat twice by Oregon State, a great team. To honestly say that I have no regrets about the decisions I made, where I went to school, how much effort I gave, was I emotionally, mentally, physically invested every single day? Like to genuinely at the end when it all is over, to say that and still have a great relationship with the game of baseball and be proud of what I did,
Mhm.
even though I didn't make it to the big leagues and play for 10 years and become a Hall of Famer. Right.
Right.
That's success, right? Unless you're that guy, you failed in, you know, upwards, I guess, whatever standards you hold yourself to.
Right. Of course.
But, that has really changed my my thought process on what success actually is. When you face the end of something that you've dedicated a lot of your lifetime to. Like for me at that point, it was just baseball. Like that's what I did as a kid. I moved high schools because of it. I went to junior college because of it. I moved to Mississippi because of it. And then it ended.
Yeah.
And I was like, how can I can't have closure about this part of my life and move on to the next part of my life without having that realization of like, did I give everything I have to maximize my potential?
Yeah. Man, it's crazy. Just listening to your story, it's wild. Because you go all the way back to your freshman year of high school, and I don't want to say chaos. I don't think chaos is the right word, but just a lot of movement, a lot
Yeah,
of change, a lot of trials and tribulations, and that's a lot going in from high school. But then I see God's goodness in like preparing you from high school to 4 years later, JUCO, right? And then 2 years after that, you get a pitching coach at the school that you always wanted to pitch for. And that lit a fire under your tail. And one thing that I can guarantee is the University of Alabama wasn't in Omaha that year, were they?
no, and I think had a pretty good record against Alabama. I don't know exactly what it was, but
There
I,
you go.
I typically pitched pretty well against
And
them.
obviously, as just a massive Bammer, I objectively love these stories regardless, right? Because
Mhm.
I think in a performance based business and unfortunately, what has become a performance based life is there are so many things that are important to use as motivation, right? And
Sure.
to allow these problems, the other side of success, to be what eventually gives you the resilience to go and do whatever it is,
Mhm.
and it's like we talk about it with our teams and just people in general my dad was, God bless his soul, really tried to work on me, and I was just a hard nut to crack. But you hear these people like, whatever you do, try to give it your best. And I think there's a lot of days that I'll leave my office and I'm like, what did I do today? I wasted a day.
Preach.
And I think it's just so important to lock in on experiences where you say, you know what, man, there was a time period where I didn't have the flexibility that I have now. I was a
Yeah,
W-2 employee for a company that had incredibly high, expectations of me, and you've been there. So when we talk about these things, the performance-based life, like you talk about the depression that can come through just having to
sure.
perform. You've been through that. You've been through that. You have experienced those lows. You've experienced those highs. How does that transition into the way you run your business?
It's very similar in ways. It's very different in ways. Our everyday grind is not physical, right? It's mental. So like, you leave a baseball practice, you leave a workout, you leave something, you have something to kind of compare it to, right? Like I got after it today, so I feel good about myself. right? With business, it's not that. It's I had moments throughout my day to get something I needed to get done, or have a conversation with somebody that I needed to have, hold an employee accountable for something that I know I need to hold them accountable to. And it's like there's so many decisions that you and I face every single day as husbands, dads, business owners. We have to decide whether we're going to address it or not, right? And so for me, like a daily success is, did I find an issue that needed to be addressed, and did I address it, or did I
Mhm.
put it off? Right. So anytime you're in a performance based business, whether it's athletics, sales, owning a business, entrepreneurship, there's going to be times where you feel like everything's about to just fall apart,
Yep.
crumble. And I've felt like that numerous times.
Mhm.
And that's where the anxiety comes from, the depression can kick in, and ultimately you just you have to find ways to manage it, man. I mean, anxiety is my next door neighbor now. I have 3 kids, a wife, a house, a business, employees, customers, people that count on me. See, I don't know if the anxiety piece really goes away. I mean, there's
Mhm.
always just something that I'm always being pulled in a direction, right? Somebody needs something from me every waking moment of my day, just like yours. You have a
Mhm.
wife, you have kids, you have customers, you have employees. Like someone always needs something from me and you. And that can be stressful and overwhelming. It can cause you to feel like you're not adequate to do it. And I guess my encouragement in those times is like, you answered this call, right? I prayed about being a business owner and God sent me this way. And like, I truly believe that God doesn't give you things that you can't handle, right? It may be a lot tougher than what you thought it would. And you may think you're not able to handle it. There's plenty of days where I'm like, I cannot do this anymore. I'm sick of it. I'm done. I'm going to go be a bartender in Mexico. Not that there's anything wrong with that. You just have to get back up the next day and do it again.
Yeah,
And it's worth it. You're worthy to take this journey on,
that's
or
right.
it wouldn't have been entrusted to you from God, from the powers that be that gave you the opportunity. They obviously
Mhm.
saw something in you. They saw something in me that says this guy can be successful. You may have a bad day, a bad week, a bad month, a bad year, but it's never too late to get back on track.
Yeah,
But you have to make the decision to do it.
that's right. Before we wrap the episode, we have a fun segment to do at the very end, but to close it out and put a bow on it, that's the question every single time. Right now, where Blake Smith is sitting, August the 12th, while we record this, 2025, what is your current definition of success?
Hmm. It's a good question. I believe life is a practice. I don't think we ever arrive. Your walk with Christ, your business, your relationship with your wife, your relationship with your kids, you never arrive, right? So it's really hard to measure success when you never arrive. The definition of success is if I'm lucky enough to get a deathbed one day, if I'm 80 something years old and I'm able to kind of look back on everything, kind of like I did, at the end of my baseball career. Am I surrounded by people that love me and genuinely want to be around me and know that I woke up every single day and gave the very best that I could give for
Mm,
them because I love them? And can I get a job well done on this side of the sun as well as the other side of the sun
yeah,
when I meet
absolutely.
Jesus? So to me, that's the only time I can ever truly, truly, truly measure success is at the end of my life. Or my kids want to have a relationship with me when they're adults and they can make their own decisions. Do
Yeah,
their kids want to have a relationship with me because they love me, not because they want my money or whatever. I don't even know if I'll have any money. But my definition of success is that the people that I love and care about want to be around me. And can I get a job well done on the other side of the sun?
love that.
That's what I would have to wrap it up at.
That's good stuff, man, and certainly appreciate you sharing that and being
Yeah.
vulnerable and being able to go down memory lane. I know sometimes that can be tough for people, but I think that one of the great things about this show is that it allows for introspective thought and being able to, be proud of yourself and ourselves and where we have come, knowing that, it's not been given to us on a silver platter and there's been a level of work. So I just want to lift you up and honor you for the way that you carry yourself there.
I appreciate that.
Let's get into our last fun segment here. This is
Let's do
my
it.
rapid fire segment. It's kind of one of my favorite times because it just lightens the mood after heavy conversations. So we're going to start off with a fun fact one, and I don't know if you know the answer to this. I know you were trying to figure it out, but who was the first SEC batter that you ever faced?
I'm glad you sent me the notes prior because I had to look this up. I knew the first team I pitched against was Vanderbilt, but I didn't know who the guy was. It was a shortstop for them. I think his name was Tyler Campbell, maybe my
Okay.
first batter off base. But my first inning in SEC play, I was able to get two strikeouts and a ground out and got out of the inning.
I tell you what I'm going to do is in the show notes on the comments of this episode, if somebody can guarantee or put in the comments who the exact batter that Blake Smith faced first in SEC play, I'll send you a hat in the mail. So if you're still listening to this episode right now, go fact check that, drop the name of whoever was the batter in the comments, and we'll send you a hat.
I think I'm right, but
All right.
that'd be fun.
All right. Favorite baseball memory on or off the field?
To be honest with you, it was a failure moment, so this will be fun. Favorite memory was getting beat in the Super Regionals in 2016 on that really good team that I was on. We got beat by Arizona. So, back to kind of what we were talking about, the whole preparation thing, right? I got my head coach that year, or not head coach, but pitching coach that year was a guy by the name of Wes Johnson. He's the head coach at Georgia now. He really got me into visualization. I would do a lot of like dry work on the mound and visualize different scenarios that I could be put in. And he was big on like, can you visualize the worst scenario I could ever possibly put you in? And can you go there mentally and get mental reps in that situation? So for me, the worst scenario I could ever be put in as a bullpen guy would be bottom of the ninth inning, the game's tied, the bases are loaded, there's no outs, and their best hitter is at the plate, and it's pouring down rain. That's exactly what happened to me in that game.
Oh my
I
goodness.
was put in the game. It was a tie game. It was the bottom of the ninth inning. It's a 3-game series to get to Omaha. We lost the first game. This was game 2. I come in the ninth inning, and we're the visiting team that night, even though we're playing at home. So like they're the home. It's the bottom of the ninth. The bases are loaded. There's nobody out, and Bobby Dahlbeck is hitting, and he's like 3 for 4 with a home run and 2 doubles that day.
Oh my goodness.
And they call the bullpen for me to come in the game, and I get out of the inning. I strike out Dahlbeck. I strike out the next guy and get a ground out and we're out of the inning.
What an
And I ended
awesome.
up getting walked off 2 innings later. I came up like a ground ball through the 4-hole and we lost. But
All
it's
that
so
for a
funny how like
walk-off?
all within an hour time span, you go from like the highest of highs to like our season's over. We just got walked off, and the guy got the hit off of me. But like it was one of those full circle moments of like all this preparation I've done. The only thing that could have made that situation worse is it was pouring down rain. I hate being wet like a
Yeah,
cat, but it wasn't raining. But all those things kind of came to fruition for me, and I got my chance to live out my nightmare.
I love that. What
But I
great.
was prepared because of Wes Johnson's visualization.
There we go. Thanks,
Tell
Wes.
him I said thank you if you ever see him.
What is your go-to walkout song?
Walkout song? Oh gosh. I think the best walkout song ever is Inner Sandman. For gosh, why can't I think of his name? Closer. Goodness
I
gracious.
don't know.
Mariano Rivera.
Okay.
That's the best walkout song ever. I could
Right.
never do that walkout song because I feel like it's disrespectful to him. But best walkout, I guess the best pump up song would be probably Bodies by Drowning Pool.
All right. Let's go. All right. Last question. This is my favorite question. You get weeks paid vacation, which fortunately in our business, we can do that as often as we want.
It's true.
But you get an all expenses paid trip. You get to go to the lake or to the beach. Where are you headed?
I'm going to the lake, 1,000%.
Love
I'm
that.
getting on a wake boat. I'm going to surf. I hate the sand. Not
Me
a
too.
beach guy.
Love that.
Definitely the lake.
Well, man, I certainly appreciate your time today. I hope that somebody out there listens to this episode and finds just a little bit of hope in the pain and the hustle. So appreciate your time, Blake, and we wish you nothing but the best.
Hey, thanks for the invite, man. I really enjoyed it, Tyler. I appreciate you having this platform for people to be vulnerable and talk about things that, times they've had success and times they haven't. I think it's very therapeutic. It was very therapeutic for me. I really enjoyed it. And I hope, like you said, I hope somebody got something out of it, and wish you the best of luck in this podcast journey. I think you're
Thanks,
great
man.
at it.
It's been just an absolute great pleasure doing this. So I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Appreciate the time.